if you start talking to me about building like a travel fund, or even parents talking about wanting to fund their child's education,
hear it all the time.
Like some things, like these are good goals to have. They're just good goals for later. You have to get through step 4. Otherwise, the amount of risk that you're taking on in life is through the roof, and the chances of success are so small. Guys, we're excited. We're gonna make this video pretty quick today, but it's something extremely important. So the last time we spoke about our financial order of operations, it was probably in our first or second episode, and with those second, those were longer episodes too, and we meant for the first couple episodes to be kind of like a lot to work through, it's like one central place that prospectively new clients can go and be introduced to our practice.
Yep. And just a preparation for them to get ready for their first meeting with us.
Yeah, when we would introduce people to it, we'd say, hey, you're going to have to take this like a chapter book, like listen to 10, 20 minutes at a time, come back to it where you left off, that kind of thing. But inside of that, there's a lot of these little like nuggets of information that are quite important, one of which being our financial order of operations. So this is how we see it as most important to work through to building to that like last step of, kind of financial freedom. A lot of times we like to put the cart before the horse. We like to
every time.
I mean, and that's important, right? We've been hitting so hard. Like we've been hammering our clients about setting 2023 goals. So at the end of the year, or first part of this year, what did we accomplish in 2022? We have to know. You have to take time to know what you did in the previous year, what your successes have been. You have to know what's working. You have to monitor your progress. At the same time, you have to set new goals. And a lot of times we talk to people and, we just sent out an email talking about how bad we as human beings are at setting goals, setting unique goals, setting goals we actually care about, how it's just more of this like collective intelligence. We always borrow each other's goals frequently, and social media only perpetuates that. Anyway, the important thing here is we've been trying to help people set goals, realistic goals, achievable goals for 2023. At the same time, set goals that they're passionate about, so that they'll want to accomplish them.
Just challenge them to dig a little bit deeper.
And when they come in with these goals, some of them are just, they're incredible goals. And we are writing them down, but we have to understand that's not necessarily a 2023 goal, right? You're putting the cart before the horse. You want to buy a house, but you don't have an emergency savings account yet. You want to start funding a travel, but like you want to build a travel budget or fund a prepaid like travel account. That's incredible. It's super healthy. But you still have this high interest credit card that's eating away at your net worth. So what is the right order to work on things? We're going to keep this pretty succinct today. If something is here that you want more of, just reach out to us and let us know if we need to break down, because some of these steps have like several considerations or
we've had our
sub-steps.
Debt rate podcast that we go really into depth on.
So this is more of just a good summary, a quick overview of what our order of operations are. So
just to help us get started with 2023,
help you put realistic goals in your down the road, so you can actually be successful and accomplish them. The first thing that we want to do is more of a CYA, like cover, CYE in this case, cover your emergencies. So this is really a balance. When we talk about covering emergencies, the easiest way to cover your these life emergencies that can arise is to have appropriate insurance and set your deductibles at a place where you can have the money in a savings account to pay for a deductible. So this could be anything from car, life, home and auto. I said car, home and auto, car. It could be your health insurance. It could be there's all kinds, disability insurance, right? First things first, know what coverage you have and understand the coverage that you have because inside of each coverage comes a deductible. So you have to pay your monthly bill, and then when something happens, you have to pay your deductible. Well, if my deductible, if I didn't realize it and I thought my deductible was $500, but it's actually $2,000.
Right.
If I only had $500 sitting in my savings account, I'm not going to be able to afford to use my insurance. Right. So a strategy here, especially if you're just getting started on this adventure of becoming, building towards financial freedom, is to call your insurance person and say, hey, I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't have a lot of money right now. I'm working on it. I need my deductibles to be as low as possible. So if I get into that car accident and I need my car to drive to my job to make the money,
I'll be able to cover it.
I can pay $250 or $500 for a deductible, but I cannot afford $1,000 right now. Right. So coordinating, connecting the dots, have the appropriate insurance, know what your deductibles are. And maybe right now, the first step for 2023 is just to have a savings account with enough to cover the varying deductibles that you might need for your health insurance. Imagine I always talk to clients like, let's imagine a bad day where 3 things happen that we have to use insurance for. So, a tree falls over on my house, and as it's falling, it crushes my car, hits my roof, and inside I break my arm.
Yep.
Right. So now I have to use my car insurance, my home insurance. I have to use my health insurance. What are the deductibles going to cost me that day? And do I have that much money in my savings account? That might be your only 2023 goal, is to coordinate your deductibles or understand your insurance, coordinate your insurance to have the deductibles that make the most sense for you, and build a savings account to get to that point. That's the CY. We changed it, not CYA, CYE, cover your emergencies. Step 2, take advantage of your employer match. So all of a sudden now I have, $4,000 in my savings account. I can pay for that bad day if it comes about. I have the deductibles there. What I'm going to start doing is, if I have access to a retirement plan through my work, such as a 401k, I am going to start taking advantage of that. So if my employer will match, the first, like if I put in 2%, he puts in 2. If I put in 3, he puts in 3. If I put in 4, he puts in 4. So if wherever that max is that the employer will match me, that's my next goal. I want to get, and it might be starting, like maybe the budget's still tight at this point. So maybe all the next step, or the 2023 goal, is just to survive the year with a 1%.
And it amazes me how many people do not take advantage of this. You're giving yourself a raise. Like, if you want a raise, you're going to give yourself a raise by taking advantage of it.
It's important to get the free match. And it's so many of people are offered this. And so many people aren't offered this that would be happy to take advantage of it. So that's step 2, is just to take advantage of an employer match. And in step 2, you might start to wrap in or start to pull in things like participate in other employer benefits. So not just the match, but maybe you opted out because things were tight. You opted out of that, group life insurance or the group disability insurance. If you did, in step 2, when we start to take advantage of our employer match, we maybe better said, just take advantage of your employer benefits in step 2. After that, we're going to move on to step 3. Step 3 is tackling your high interest debt. Now, we had an episode where we talked a lot about debt, and we talked about the varying strategies. So if you want to go back and search for our debt episode, but we talked about like the snowball and the avalanche, and we talked about different strategies. But step 3 is simply just tackling those high interest, the bad debt. All right. So some people come to me and they're like, Brandon, I just financed a car and I have, 60 months of 0% interest, or my home, I financed my home and it's at 3%. Those are strategies that are so personal to work through. So we're not going to tell you like where to stop paying down debt. All we're saying that in step 3, we're speaking to the bad debt That's the stuff that's like, it's, that's the credit card that you're paying 18 to 26% on. It's the stuff that isn't like the secure debt. It's the unsecured
and again, there's
debt.
multiple strategies, the way to pay it off, whether you use the, snowball or avalanche. It's kind of up to that individual person on how they do it.
Right. So,
but it should be,
we're happy to talk one-on-one. If you have specific questions about your debt, just know we're going to come back later and talk about the stuff that's like, you're kind of leveraging money, where interest rates are incredibly low to zero, and you're using that to kind of, leverage and grow your net worth quicker. There's strategies when it comes to debt, but specifically in step 3, it is tackle the high interest, unsecured, the bad debt. Step 4 now is to finish building out your emergency savings. So in step 1, we put enough in our emergency savings to cover just the emergency, the deductibles. In step 4, we're going to finish funding our emergency savings, and we're going to make it, again, appropriate for you, but most of the time
for everybody, but typically it's 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months.
And again,
and we talked about that too in our, we have a savings episode.
Yep.
And in the savings episode, we talked about, is it just you by yourself, taking care of just you, or is it just you by yourself taking care of a family? Is it just if you and your spouse are like employed at the same business, should you consider that almost like one employer? Or do you have very diversified jobs in a multiple income family? Like for example, when I was in the military, I could get sick, I could get hurt, everything was taken care of, right? So 3 months was probably more important or more appropriate than 6.
But your paycheck also is probably the exact same.
It was always the same. And
if
I was sick for 2 weeks, or if I got hurt and couldn't do my job for 6 months, they would find a different, desk job for me. And
whereas you have guys that are in sales, maybe a car salesman, his paycheck could be huge 1 month and then almost nothing the next month. We might ask, you need to extend that emergency savings a little bit further in duration than 100%. Somebody with a steady paycheck.
So while the amounts might be very, very individualized, step 4 is to have the goal of getting to that amount, right? So if you have questions, again, reach out about your specific situation. So let's pause there for just 1 second. So in step 1, cover your emergencies. Step 2, take advantage of employer matches in your 401k if you have access to one, or review your other employer benefits and maybe take advantage of those if it makes sense for you. Step 3, tackle high interest debt. Step 4, finish building out your emergency savings. Why am I pausing there? So we have 5 through 8. In one more second, I'll get to that. But step 1 through 4, really, if you're not through building out your emergency savings to a 3 to 6 month living expense kind of thing, that should just be about every bit of your financial planning or financial goal for 2020 is to get through step 4. Point. Right? So if you start talking to me about building like a travel fund, or even parents talking about wanting to fund their child's education,
hear it all the time.
Like some things, like these are good goals to have. They're just good goals for later. You have to get through step 4. Otherwise, the amount of risk that you're taking on in life is through the roof. And the chances of success are so small. There was a statistic that it was something like 80, it was over 80%, but it was close to 80, that 80% of people in their 30s or that started saving into retirement plans before the age of 30 without, if they did not have an appropriate emergency savings account, would take money out. When you take money out of these things, one, you're paying taxes
and you're
changing the income structure, and you're going to pay a penalty on this stuff. So we can't stress enough how important the order of this stuff is. All right. So coming down off that high horse, let's move on. All right. Let's assume that we've covered our emergencies. We've taken advantage of our 3 or 4% 401k match. We've tackled our high interest debt, and we have a 3 month or 6 month savings account. Let's move on. Now we want to come back to look at our personal IRAs and HSAs and start maxing those things out. So IRAs, we've talked about this before, but obviously there's traditional like when we're referring to our personal stuff, there's traditional IRAs, there's Roth IRAs. These are tax advantaged. You have to be able to qualify for them, or you do non-elective contributions. There are strategies like backdoor Roth accounts. Those, if you're going to do a backdoor Roth account or backdoor Roth contribution, make sure you're doing that with somebody that is knowledgeable, because you could end up like paying way more in taxes. There's some of the things.
There's a chance that's going away.
There's all kinds of strategies that that's always up in the air. So take advantage of maxing out your personal IRAs and your HSA. HSAs are incredible, tax deferred going in.
Yep.
Tax free coming out,
and you're allowed to invest,
and you can invest
in
it.
Most plans, I believe.
Yeah, I mean it's an incredible asset tool.
And going back to those deductibles, I've always liked trying to keep your deductible amount in your HSA account, because again, yes, tax free, tax deferred. If it's qualified purchase, then it's completely tax free.
Yeah. So HSAs, IRAs, that's step 5. We're going to max those out on an annual basis as we can, like if we're eligible for them. After we start maxing out our personal stuff, our personal IRAs and personal HSAs, then we can start to max out other tax advantage savings options. So this could be going back now to your 401k, and instead of just doing the 4% to get the 4% match,
max it out.
Now we're going to start getting into those annual max limits. And so whether if you're self-employed and you don't have that 401k, maybe it's a SEP account, maybe you have a simple, whatever those are, each one of those different accounts have different limits set by the IRS. Yep. This year, every limit went up. And so we send out an email. We're sending out an email. We have like a page just kind of devoted to what those limits and how those changes.
The new changes, yeah.
Also, just on that note, with 2023 changes while we're here, Secure Act 2.0 has come out. It's changed like so much about what we've had access to and how we've had access to retirement strategies. And and the law has passed. So now we just need to wait on like the big financial institutions and the IRS and the Department of Labor to catch up on all their applications of these laws. But it's really, really good news. So if you catch an article about it, or if you see one of our emails or our post on any of our socials, like read about it, because it's very, very beneficial to you. All right. So the 7th and 8th step here kind of work hand in hand. But really, and really, this is kind of where we start to dial in on this financial freedom. Getting to step 7 and 8 probably means a couple of things. One, we're maxing out tax advantaged saving strategies. So we're going to start to need and rely on taxable investment accounts. We've also paid off a lot of our high interest debt already, but we still might have some debt that would be nice to get rid of. But it's not necessary. We've also looked early on at our insurance. Insurance is something we should review annually to make sure it's appropriate, but now's the time where maybe we can be like, hey, it's time to, or even earlier when we kind of maxed out that emergency savings, raise the deductibles to lower our monthly bills, creating better cash flows. So we've probably gone through some cash flow refinement. We've done a great job of like spending less and saving more. Step 7 and 8, hyper accumulation and becoming debt free. So in that hyper accumulation, what we're looking for there is your income of your total gross income. Are you saving about 25%? So north of 20 into the 25%, we're going to call you a hyper accumulator. And for some people, it could be even a little bit higher than that, depending on where your income threshold or income range is. But when you're hyper accumulating, you're maxing out your work, your tax advantaged options of saving. Taxable accounts are your option there, as well as paying down some of that debt that we, earlier we might have called good debt. the 3% mortgage. Again, not something that I'm saying that has to be gone for you to be financially free. But it's something that we might revisit and be like, hey, this is just costing money now. And we have the money to pay it off. So let's just do it.
You're pretty much paying off debt on accumulating assets, not depreciating assets
exactly.
at this point.
That's a great way to put it. Yep. So, well, just to say them one more time, CYE, cover your emergencies, take advantage of employer match, step 2. Step 3, tackle high interest debt. Step 4, emergency savings. That's kind of like get to this point, and then we can start working on the other goals of buying a home or whatever the case may be. Step 5, max out your personal IRAs and your HSA. Step 6, max out your tax advantage savings options. So this can be your 401k, your SEP, your simple, whatever the case may be there. Step 7 is hyper accumulation, and step 8 is be debt free. That's the order of operations. If you go out of that order, especially in those first 4, you're taking massive risk and you're really, really not allowing much room for success. You're working against the grain.
Well, you also are not allowing much room for any type of mistake.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
any little mistake, if you skip steps, can derail you.
Yep. If I start putting money in my 401k too soon, and I can't cover my emergencies, and I get in that car accident that's not my fault.
Right.
Now all of a sudden I have to pay $1,000 deductible or $500 deductible, but I don't have it. I'm having to put it on my credit card, and guess what? Paying high interest on that, or I'm dipping into my 401k and paying a 10% penalty. So steps 1 through 4 are so important to do in the correct order. After that, 5, 6, 7, and 8, there's definitely some wiggle room, and that's where we want to start to individualize that that plan, that strategy. So please feel free to reach out to us. And again, it's still so important to dream big. So even if I'm working on step 1, I can definitely have the home to buy my home goal or to fund my kids' college goal, even if I'm still working on putting money into my savings account just to cover my insurance deductibles. I can still dream big. It's just about setting the appropriate goal, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to say, hey, I want to accomplish this year, when we just don't have the means to accomplish it. We're setting ourselves up for failure. I would rather start small, start simple, create a habit of success.
Which is the reason why we have our sprints
and
quarterly sprints. And
that's it. So that's what we got. Order of operations, super important to the goal setting process to understand these, write these down. And as you know that you're there, check them off. And if you're already in step 6, or maybe you're already in step 8, great. If you're in step 1, that's fine. It's never too late to get started. I've heard that over and over from major, successful people, that you're never behind. You just feel like you are. Yep. So get started today, even if it's just on that step 1 of putting some cash to cover your deductible and your emergency savings. And maybe that is all you can accomplish in 2023. And that is okay. We are here for you to take your calls, respond to emails, send us content that you want to listen to. That's all I got. Josh, you got anything?
Yep. Nope.
All right.
I'm good.
All right. We'll talk soon. Have a good week. We hope you learned from our conversation today. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes and not intended to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions of how it might be applicable to your specific situation, please reach out to your financial professional. Of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you regarding specific questions or applications to your individual financial situation. With that, here are a few disclosures. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. With that, thank you, and we look forward to having you back. Take care.